Everyone, welcome to the parish. Imagine you were throwing a dinner party. Now, this is hypothetical, so we don't need to worry about masks and social distancing. This is in theory only. Imagine you were throwing a dinner party and you invited some of your nearest and dearest to join you. And then you informed them during dinner that you were going to be taking a trip. You weren't sure how long you're going to be gone. What you do know is that you're going to be completely out of contact. There's no digital devices, there's no email, there's no phone calls, there's not even snail mail. What are the things that you would want to leave them with? Maybe instructions about how to take care of the pets or the kids that you're leaving behind. Maybe it's, here's the keys to my place, and can somebody please go and check my place after we have big rains because my basement might flood? What kinds of things do you want to say to them before you go on this trip where you're going to be out of touch? Maybe you want to leave them with some parting words, some words of wisdom, some words to give them encouragement, some words to give them hope, some words that remind them of the connection that they have with you and the connection that you feel with them. What are your parting words? Jesus must have been reflecting on that in the time leading up to his death and his crucifixion. Because in the Gospel of John, we see about 3 chapters that are called the farewell discourse, where Jesus is giving last instructions, last lessons, last teachings to his students and his disciples. In fact, those things occur in the upper room during the Last Supper. Jesus has washed their feet. He has served them a Passover meal where he said strange things like, "This is my body broken for you." He told them that one of them would betray him, and Judas actually got up and left the table. He told Peter, before the rooster crows tomorrow morning, you're going to deny 3 times that you know me. And he proceeds then to give them what we would call 3 chapters worth of instructions. And so that's where we're reading from today. We've been looking at the I am statements that Jesus made that are recorded in the Gospel of John. And this particular statement comes during his farewell discourse. And so we're in chapter 15 of John, starting at verse 1, where Jesus tells his followers, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vineyard keeper. He removes any of my branches that don't produce fruit, and he trims any branch that produces fruit, so that it will produce even more fruit. You are already trimmed because of the word I have spoken to you. So remain in me, and I will remain in you. A branch can't produce fruit by itself, but it must remain in the vine. Likewise, you can't produce fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, then you will produce much fruit. Without me, you can't do anything. If you don't remain in me, you will be like a branch that's thrown out and dries up. Those branches are gathered up, thrown into a fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask for whatever you want and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified when you produce much fruit, and in this way prove that you are my disciples. As the Father loved me, I too have loved you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy will be in you and your joy will be complete. This is my commandment. Love each other just as I have loved you." Remain in me. Stay connected to me. I'm the vine. My Father is the gardener. You are the branches. We hear this word remain over and over and over again. The Greek word there is meno, and it means to abide, to continue to be, to last, to endure. Why is Jesus spending so much time talking about vines and branches and remain? We get it. I don't even know how many times that word was used in the 12 verses I just read, but it was a lot, right? Why would Jesus spend time telling them that? It's because remaining in him isn't a default position. So far, his disciples have had personal face-to-face access with him. And now he's telling them that someone's going to betray him, someone's going to deny him, that his body is being broken for them. And you got to think they're sensing that something is about to go down. And when something is about to go down, you want to be prepared. Jesus is preparing them, and he's saying, you have to remain in me. And so I think he wants them to know that life in the vine is a refusal to return to a default position. Life in the vine is a refusal to feel like we have to figure it all out and do it ourselves, and that the buck stops here and that I have to make it happen. He's saying the only way to grow in Christ-likeness, the only way to continue to become more of a person who reflects God's love, is to remain in me, to abide in me, to continue to be in me, to last, to endure in me. In order to be more like Christ, we have to stay connected to Christ. Think about a branch that tries to produce grapes but isn't connected to the vine. A grapevine only produces fruit, grapes. A grapevine only produces grapes when it's connected to the vine, intended by a gardener. And so abiding in Christ yields Christ-like fruit. And that is how others know that we are following Christ. Not because we want to prove to them, ooh, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christ follower, but because we want them to experience the world with the love of Christ surrounding them and surrounding us. And so on one hand, we have a connection to the vine. That's one of our choices. The other choice, on the other hand, is rugged individualism. Either remain in Christ or try and go it on your own. And so life on the vine is actually a protest against rugged individualism. It's saying, I refuse this narrative that I have to do it all on my own. I reject the idea that it's all on my shoulders. I choose to meet my obligations instead in God's strength and power. And Jesus tells his followers that when you remain in me, my joy will be in you and your joy will be complete. The only way to be connected to the joy of Christ is to stay connected to Christ. And so life on the vine protests rugged individualism, not only in our own lives and in ourselves, but it also protests the expectation of rugged individualism in others. Because life on a vine, life in the vine, suggests community. It suggests connection. It suggests that we have a shared responsibility to serve others, to follow the greatest commandments that Jesus told us there are. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And he said the second one is like it. Love your neighbor as you love yourselves. And here he tells his disciples, love one another as I have loved you. How can we do that? How can we love one another with the level of sacrificial love that Jesus shows to each of us and offers to each of us? The only way to do that is to be connected. Because in him we have all the power we need. Now, there are good people who do a lot of good things and kind things and loving things who don't even believe in the existence of a higher power, and that's beautiful and it's wonderful. But how can we possibly go on loving others as we love ourselves? How can we possibly go on loving others as Christ has loved us? The best way, the most powerful way, the most effective way is to remain in Christ, because there we have all the power that we need. And Jesus said to his disciples, you've been hearing my words. Your lives have already begun to be transformed by my words. and by the things I've been telling you and by following the example that I've set for you. How do you continue with that? By remaining in me. How do you love one another as I have loved you? By remaining in me. How do you bear fruit that represents me in your community and with your family and your friends and your neighbors? By remaining in me. Life in the vine is living intentionally. It's a refusal of the default position. And it's a choice to seek the Spirit of God flowing into us, flowing through us, and coming out of us in ways that represent the ultimate love, sacrifice, and service to our communities and to those around us. Jesus is the vine, we are the branches. God the Father is the gardener who tends and waters it all. And without an intimate connection to that vine, we will surely dry up and be unable to follow through, be unable to love one another as Christ has modeled for us. Living in the vine is intentional. It's an intentional choice. And so here's what I want to encourage us to do this week. Pick at least one time, maybe two, where you take some time to cultivate that intentionality, where you set aside a few minutes to be quiet, to be still, not necessarily in your body, but in your mind. Some time to cultivate that intentionality of remaining in the vine, of being open to the work of the Spirit in your life, to be open to understanding new things and seeing things differently, maybe doing things differently than you've done. And here are some suggested activities that I think help to promote that mindfulness, where we attend to that intentionality, where we attend to that command to remain in Him, to abide in Him. Maybe go for a walk and look at the trees, or look at the vines if you live near vines. Study those as you're walking. Be thinking about what it means to be connected. What do you notice about the roots? What do you notice about the fruit or the leaves or whatever is growing off that tree? What do you notice about what's living in the tree? How does that all connect? What's the application to being connected to the life of the vine? Maybe study a picture. If you see a picture of a vine system or trees, take a time to look at that and meditate on it and ask the Spirit to work in you. Maybe if you're artistic, you can draw or paint trees and vines and grapes. I'm a terrible drawer. I can't even draw stick figures, but I can diagram. I can diagram maybe a tree with roots and bark, and I can do branches and leaves. Something that helps us to visualize. Maybe you're a physical, a tactile person, and actually standing with your arms out. And on one hand, you're grabbing onto something, and in the other hand, see, I'm trying to get my hands on screen. You're hanging on maybe to fruit, and you're opening your hand for the fruit to be produced. Some of those tactile things can help us. So take some time. And if intentionality and cultivating that is new to you, maybe only one time this week. If you want to try some spiritual practices and you're used to doing that, maybe 2 or 3 times this week. Think now about when you're going to do that. Cultivate intentionality. Cultivate life on the vine. Remain in Christ. Christ will remain in you, so that we may love others as Christ has loved us. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you and cultivate in you the fruit of Christ-likeness. Grace and peace.